I paid my parents' mortgage for 7 years. At Dad's 60th birthday, they announced my brother was getting the house and I had 30 days to leave. When Dad's business failed, my parents fell 3 months behind. Mom asked me to give up my apartment and move home so the rent I saved could keep the bank from taking their house. The finished basement was the only private space they could offer. The night I moved in, Dad pressed a scratched brass key into my palm. He left the porch light on whenever I worked late at the hospital. I covered the mortgage. 6 months later, Dad promised me the house if I kept paying until the loan was gone. He kept his small promises. I assumed he would keep this one. Whenever I asked for an agreement, he pushed another estimate across the table, the furnace, then the roof. We'll call a lawyer after this. There was always another this. His messages stayed vague. Keep your records. We'll make a house yours when the mortgage is gone. I paid above market rent and helped with both repairs. My brother Daniel had 2 children and a landlord selling their duplex. My parents rescued him. They relied on me. 7 years later, folding chairs, paper plates, and relatives filled the living room for Dad's birthday. Mom's older sister, Claire, sat beside me. As Mom carried in the cake, Claire whispered, "Giving Daniel the house is generous." I thought she had misunderstood. After blowing out the candles, Dad gave Daniel a new key. He would move in that month, refinance, and eventually receive the deed. Then Dad thanked me for agreeing to move out within 30 days. Relatives clapped before they saw my face. The candles were still smoking. I never agreed to this. Mom looked around the room. "Please don't do this here. We told everyone you wanted to help." I said we had discussed Daniel's rent, not my home. Dad reminded me the deed was theirs. I had a job and Daniel had children. Daniel said they had called my payments rent and claimed I was apartment hunting. Once exposed, he insisted he had not known. Then he kept a new key. Dad held out his hand for my scratched brass one. I slipped it into my pocket and walked outside. I sat in my car until the porch light went dark. Mom never came out. Claire called. Mom had told everyone the move was my idea. She apologized for believing her. After midnight, the brass key let me back into the basement. The next morning, I found Dad drinking coffee and asked when Daniel would take over the mortgage. The house still carried a mortgage, so Daniel needed a new loan in his name to pay off the remaining balance before the deed could be transferred. His income and credit were not enough to qualify. My parents expected me to keep paying their existing mortgage for 6 months, possibly a year, while renting elsewhere. Mom invoked the children's school. Dad said 7 years in the basement was all my money had bought. At lunch, I sat alone in the hospital staff room, called a real estate lawyer Claire recommended, and opened 7 years of transfers and Dad's messages on my laptop. The messages might support a claim, the lawyer said, but suing without a contract was risky. She warned me against more debt for a house outside my name. That evening, I offered to refinance or let Daniel receive the house after repaying part of my contribution. Dad rejected both. The house is ours to give away. Mom renamed my 7 years of payments household expenses. I emailed them that my payments would stop when I moved. Mom sat among my boxes as I packed. "If we told you first, you would have said no. So you told everyone I'd already agreed." She creased a box flap. "We thought once everyone was happy, you wouldn't back out." I had never agreed. The night before I left, my parents laid Daniel's mortgage application on a box. Daniel's name would go on the deed. I would be the non-occupying co-borrower whose income secured his loan. If he defaulted, the bank could pursue me for a house I did not own. Daniel stood behind them. His children had packed. He knew about Dad's promise now, yet still wanted my signature. What am I supposed to tell my kids? That we lost the house because you changed your mind? I picked up a pen. I could already hear my family blaming me. Then I laid the scratched brass key across the empty signature line. "If it's your house, you carry the loan." I moved out the next morning. Claire helped with the final boxes and never asked me to forgive anyone. Without my income, lenders rejected Daniel. My parents kept paying until the house sold 4 months later and cleared the loan. They downsized. Daniel moved farther from his children's school. I recovered none of my money. Some relatives apologized after learning the truth. Others still believed the reliable child should have sacrificed more. When the listing changed to sold, I cried in the hospital parking lot. I had not wanted my parents to lose their home. I had wanted them to keep their promise. My new lease listed one tenant, me. On move-in day, the manager handed me a plain silver key. That night, I locked the door before bed. Nobody in my family had a copy.